we're in a deficit of answers and a surplus of questions. So I encourage participation. I encourage us to have a really great dialogue after the presentation. The presentation is going to cover a few key things. First of all, we're going to talk about the agentic internet. We're going to talk about the implications of AI search. I'm going to drop some tactics and some strategies you can think about. So if that all sounds good, we'll get underway. By way of introduction, I'm Josh Bliscoe. I'm the founding AI strategist here at Profound. Profound is the first of its kind as a marketing platform. We allow marketers to understand, control, and defensively build visibility in answer engine and AI search tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI Overviews, Google AI Mode, Grok, Meta AI, you name it, we're monitoring it, and we're able to provide brands with insights around this space. And so today, I really want to talk to you about the agentic internet. So traditional search in the past was a two-sided marketplace, right? Consumers would trawl through information to discover, interpret, and consume information. But we're at this really critical inflection point, which is that humans no longer need websites to get information. So instead of browsing blue links, an agent now goes on their behalf. So when you ask something like, what's the best SUV for a family? The agent will search the web. It'll go through the marketplace. And so more than just browsing, that agent will actually interpret and prepare the information for the user. That's critically essential. And serve it up as a ready-made, cohesive answer to the user at the end of the day. And sure, the agent will tell the user where the content came from, but who cares where it came from if it tastes good? So search was a two-sided marketplace where consumers visited brands directly. That's really important. You have this brand direct relationship with consumers where the website hosted the content and the user visited the website to get the information. That partnership is strong. That linkage had been unbroken for decades since the invention of search. Answer engines steal that end user from the brand, fundamentally coming in between that relationship and, in essence, owning it. Eventually, the end consumer will only interact with the answer engine itself. And so agents will be the primary visitors of websites. There's this great stat by Andrej Karpathy, who is the founding member of OpenAI, also pretty big at Tesla. And he says that 99% of attention itself is about to become LLM attention, not human attention. That's huge. So introducing agent experience. There's user experience, which is the overall experience of a person using a website or product, especially in terms of how it's pleasing or how easy it is to use. But what if people aren't using websites? So agent experience flips the modality on its head. AX is the intentional design of a digital environment to ensure that it is optimally legible, actionable, and aligned with AI agent behavior. That's a cornerstone of what we're doing here at Profound. We're driving companies to be ready for agent experience, AX. And so if SEO was the art of ensuring that your stall is in the optimal position in the marketplace, AX experts will rethink brand, products, and content for the agentic internet. So AX is understanding that you have a single new customer. As AI agents become first-class citizens of the internet, marketers are going to need to learn how to connect with consumers through agents, through things like shopping, where agents won't just provide answers, but will autonomously decide where best to shop and transact. And so and one of the best things right now is we're seeing folks like Sam Altman really be aware of this space. So Sam Altman said, I think it was back in March of 2025, if you buy something through deep research, we're going to charge a 2% affiliate fee. And that to us is an indication that shoppability, commerce, and transactions, they're coming in AI experiences. And actually within Profound, we track those things and we can see that the actual recall rate, the actual rate that these shopping experiences are added, it's moving double-digit percentages month over month, where people are shopping more often in answer engines than ever before, and that happens every single month. It's really an amazing trend to see happen right in front of our eyes. So Adobe also released this great piece of research. It would basically be out of place for me not to cite it. 92% of shoppers said that AI enhanced their shopping experience, and 87% said that they were more likely to use AI for larger or more complex purchases. That's huge. So we know shopping is changing. We know that information hierarchy is shifting. And we know that the way that people are going to shop is going to turn more conversational. We've seen things like Google AI Mode, which we can talk about a little bit later, all those different tools are changing the expectations around how people find information and products that they want. We can also talk about memory really briefly. I think memory is really an interesting piece as well. So on April 10th, and I think the interesting thing about this is that OpenAI always had kind of a personalization element. OpenAI on April 10th, though, introduced new sophisticated memory functionality. So the way that OpenAI Dreams really work is as follows. You've got your historical conversation logs, which grow infinitely. Basically, you're always adding to your historical conversation logs with things that you're saying, your wants, your dreams, your hopes, your immediate desires, your immediate needs. Those things feed into an update of the dream, right? Basically, here's what you're pursuing. Here's what's going on in your life. The LLM then creates basically an index of, all right, here is what's happening. Here's the one summary of all those different things we talked about at that certain point in time. And then we use that dream, or the answer engine uses that dream in the system prompt to say, okay, you're a helpful assistant. By the way, Josh is thinking about a really tough conversation he's going to have with his boss. And then we basically create a personalized response. And that personalized response is something that the user chats with, and it builds up more historical conversation logs. And so we're creating this cycle where the personalization creates a loop around the user. And the user itself, their search experience becomes one of a kind. Optimizing for that is an entirely new challenge for marketers. So, I mean, this is from February, but this was from a brief that ChatGPT had released. The more you use ChatGPT, the more useful it becomes. New conversations build upon what was already known and allows you to make smoother, more tailored interactions over time. That's really important as well. We could talk about proactive conversation as well. This is going to be a future, I mean, it's going to be huge in agent experience. Agentic conversations right now are only push. I have to decide to initialize a conversation, initialize a task. There will be a world where the conversations will be push and pull. And that's where things really start to change. So this moment kind of starts bit by bit, but as we can see, it will start to move along into things like this. Context aware, location aware, hyper-personalized chats with these AI assistants. How did it go with your boss? Feeling any better? Right? Imagine ChatGPT pinging you immediately based on the context that it knows about you, when you're having this conversation, and the totality of the information around you. This will be the future of agentic interactions, and brands that are aware of it are going to succeed, and brands that are not are going to be left behind. This is a total shift in the information economy. We could talk about advertising as well. So right now it's completely uncertain if or when advertising will truly proliferate in answer engines. There's a lot of discourse around the point. And I think the interesting thing is that if they do it, we'll postulate for a second, generative advertising plus agentic internet plus memory would create a mind-meltingly different experience for people who've been subjected to normal search and normal search ads for decades. Imagine that same answer agent who serves you an answer, but now at this point, carefully positions an ad next to it. Or one step further, B to A advertising may proliferate. That's huge. Business to agent. Advertising will be built to target agents. Operator, right? ChatGPT's new tool that can basically go and browse the web for you using the front end of different web pages. Operator can already see ads and factors them in. So AX itself has arrived, and Profound is building, obviously, that technology to equip marketers to win in that new agentic internet, to understand, manage, and control how AI agents interpret your brand. Using AI, we can study patterns and behaviors across huge data sets. And so here's some things we're learning so far. I mean, this is some of the most exciting stuff that I'm pulling out. And I'm happy to answer questions about it as well on the side. So one thing, agents don't care about traffic. We did a citation test across 50,000 different prompts, 15 different industries. And these are global industries, by the way, across 3 different months. We're doing that. I think that was March, and then June, and then lately July. We did 3 different tests here. Just because the model mix changed ever so slightly, we had to do it 3 different times. The R squared that we got was 0.05. 95% of AI citation behavior cannot be explained by traffic. We have sites with low traffic that get amazing citations. We have sites with massive traditional SEO traffic Huge pull in search engines that are completely shunned by AI agents. Agents completely skip over them. Why? Because we live in a utility-first content world. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Agents don't care about backlinks. So if you're familiar with SEO, a backlink is basically a moment when a web page itself is linked from another web page. So if I'm on Profound and I link to Ford, for example, I would be giving Ford a backlink. Agents don't care. Now in SEO, that's a pretty good sign of authority. If people are willing to link to your website and say, hey, reference this website, for other website builders and search engine creators like Google, they care deeply about backlinks. Agents don't. Only utility. Does it answer the question? Does it provide my user with the answer? Does this help me navigate the marketplace? That's the question. And agents mostly don't interact with JavaScript. We're seeing basically across the board, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI Overviews, all of these different agents, they stop at rendering JavaScript, meaning e-commerce is ripe for disruption. I've worked with some of the biggest e-commerce brands in the world, and auditing their page content, I see JavaScript on top of JavaScript on top of JavaScript, basically blotting out the sun and making it impossible for you to view the content from these actual answer engines. That's huge, right? So the answer engines go to your page, and if they see nothing but blank white space, you cannot be optimized. That's massive, massive stuff. Agents love structured data. This is the front door to every website on the internet. This is what agents see when they visit your page. This is the information. This is what they have to claw through to understand what your products are, where you stack up, why you're worth recommending, why you're worth mentioning to the user in the chat. And for answer engines, for agents, this is massively complicated and requires tons of computational energy. It eats up tokens, it eats up effort. So serve it up to them with an LLMs.txt. The LLMs.txt right now, this is a new protocol that's being released. This protocol lives on the root of your domain, and it's basically a high level, almost like you can almost richly write a description of your content, your pages in markdown formatting, easy for the answer engine to actually digest, read, and understand, so that when that answer engine visits your piece of content, they understand, okay, I'm on the homepage. Here are the 5 different products that this company, this bank, this firm offers. I'm going to click on this one. I'm going to go check that one. And I don't have to go through this cascade, this waterfall of information. Semantic URLs give agents confidence. So answer engines go to the open internet and they want to find the content that they're most confident will solve that specific query. When we think about what answer engines are doing, they will have more confidence in a link that literally says most ethical and sustainable clothing brands from the UK, rather than A8DF7 ethical 92J3K brands -UK. We see all the time some of the biggest brands in the world, their URL slugs are malformed. Their URL slugs are randomly formatted. We need to create slugs that tell answer engines, like a little green flag, hey, the content here is semantically relevant. The content here is aligned with the search that the user gave. Here's how we know. It's because this is what the URL slug is about. And when the URL slug is aligned, the answer agents, the answer engines will click on that content. We've seen this time and time again. This is one of my most common optimizations to make on websites. They pay attention to metadata. Metadata. So metadata is the title tag, the meta description, the URL slug, again, URL slug. But more importantly, let's talk about the meta description for a second. We were working with a company in the financial industry. And the financial industry, everybody wants to compare their products. Everyone wants to compare all the different things. Like, I mean, even across, we'll do business credit cards because it's right here on the slide. We were looking for the example that I'm going to use. Basically, we're looking at ETFs, so exchange traded funds. People literally laid out, this ETF does this, this, and this, and this. When you specifically include the answer to the question. So for instance, the best business credit card includes Chase Business Unlimited, VentureX Business, and US Bank Business Triple Cash Rewards, among other options. When you include the answer to the question, what's the best business credit card in the metadata, because of the way the answer engines pick up information, they basically find that information, that exact layout, to be a snippet of that value, and they're more likely to click and they're more likely to cite it, because if that piece of meta description, if that 200 characters already says what needs to be said about the business or the brand, then elementally that piece of content simply must align as by the logic of the answer engines. Now, does it always align? Not exactly, but you're sending signals, you're earning clicks, you're earning citations by trying to market the cover of the book, earning that click in the first place. And agents are extremely lazy. They're not pretty lazy. I mean, I would change this slide. Of my last 3 months of working in the space, I have decided answer engines and agents are extremely lazy. So if I'm an answer engine and an agent, and someone asks me, what are the best men's running shoes? What am I going to do? Am I going to go to Nike, Adidas, Puma, Under Armour, all of the different sites, Hoka, On Running, Saucony, to compare and contrast all of the different running shoe brands? Not likely. I'm going to go to a top 9 best men's running shoe write-up. I'm going to pull the top 3 results, and I'm going to basically paste that into the ChatGPT window as if it's my own insight. Why? Because agents are pretty lazy. One beautiful thing that we've done recently across 177 million citations. So this is 177 million citations we've analyzed in our time here at Profound. A third of citations, the most cited single type of content, is comparative and listicle content. And that's at 32.5% of all content cited across the board. It's a massive skew, especially considering that the second most cited type of content is your block and opinion content at around 9.9%. The verdict is in, the bias is real. Right now in AI search, comparative listicle content is winning across the board. Let's see here. Yeah, agents like shiny new things. So we know that content that's been updated recently, really recent pieces of content, days, weeks, even just as recent as hours old, gets indexed by answer agents and served to users within the actual platform. We've seen that within Profound as well. So we'll work with customers to release a piece of content. Within 12, 24, 48 hours, we're seeing that content earn citations. That's much faster than traditional SEO. Traditional SEO takes days, if not weeks, to see results because of how massive the algorithms are, how large the corpus of data and text is. Answer agents are incredibly sensitive to information that directly answers the queries that users pose, and they're willing to pick it up immediately. In certain situations, they also like social media. So we were looking at one of our customers in the cloud compute space. They were looking to understand what the top cited sources were going to be. They noticed that one particular Reddit thread was incredibly well cited. So what did they do? They went into that Reddit thread and they commented with the name of their brand. My brand is affordable, scalable, and flexible. It has a great GPU cloud with serverless dedicated, it's dedicated GPU cloud work, and it's community run for AI and ML. Great. They did that across the second most cited Reddit thread, the third most cited Reddit thread. What they had basically done within a month of commenting across Reddit threads was that they took their visibility from 20% at the beginning of March 2025 to 80% by the end of June 2025. So in 3 really short months, they had gone from being mentioned in 1 out of 5 responses to basically being irreplaceable in AI answers across the board. That changed their entire inbound lead funnel. They're seeing something like 20 to 40% of all their inbound leads coming from AI search at the moment. And they're getting massive conversions from it. It's very exciting. That piece is extremely compelling. So this is what happens when you write to those specific queries. We talked about content utility. We are living in a world where the actual utility of the answer, the way you directly answer the question. This is Ramp, by the way, a popular fintech here in New York. Ramp released content that specifically spoke to the top accounts payable software for large and small businesses. We took Ramp's citation share in accounts payable from 1% to 7% in 1 month by releasing hyper-specific pieces of content. That was the play, that was the outcome, and we basically did that just thinking about content utility. How can we provide the best answer to this hyper-specific, hyper-niche area? Doing that, we earned that citation share, that 7x increase. And that's barely the start. We've had, like I said, we've had customers go from 20 to 80. we are consistently moving people to being massively influential from a position of meager relevance within their industry just through strategic placements across citations. We did the same for 1840 & Co. Great global staffing agency. They released some pieces of content. They released a piece of content on November 13th or 14th. And by November 15th, they had become one of the top 10 most visible companies within their industry. Within the later, I think within like 2 or 3 weeks, they were already at 10%, and they ended up at 12% by the end of November. It was extremely compelling work as well. So that's extremely exciting. So this is just the beginning, folks. I believe that AI visibility will become the most important function of marketing. Honestly, I think SEO itself has been pretty unremarkable for the last 5-10 years. I think this is a moment where SEO and AEO, as I call it, answer engine optimization, really has the opportunity to become the most important and really a core pillar of the marketing stack for the generative future. And so we're building that technology to help teams navigate the agentic internet. And this is what we do. We track your AI visibility across your brand, showing how often you appear across responses. We show you which pages matter most, and we tell you how to understand the details. We have the world's first actual keyword volume tool. So we have the first tool that tells you what people are actually searching for in AI models live. We can tell you specifically, like on a week-to-week basis, how often people are searching in ChatGPT for specific queries. We can help you create content for agents as well, leveraging millions of data points to create net new content, which is optimized for retrieval agents. So thank you very much. Happy to chat, excited to be here. I'll take any questions.
Wow. So Josh, let's start with your product. By the way, thank you very much. That's a fabulous presentation, and I've got a whole list of insights I've already taken away, so thank you. On your product, this is an API. So how would a company or a brand gain access to your product?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to tryprofound.com. We have a light tier that's open for $500 USD per month. That gives you basic access to the platform, the top 4 models, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI overviews. The light is something you could sign up for right now, just to test it, just to see if you like it. If you want to go for the full experience, we have an enterprise modal. The enterprise comes with the Conversation Explorer, all the additional features, AI strategist time. It is the massive artillery piece of AI visibility software that I think every brand needs in this day and age, and that you can start to sign up for a chat with one of our strategic account directors
Right.
on the website. Yeah, it's excellent.
And this is multi-language, or right now it's
It is
English?
multi-language. We run in I think 35 different regions, including most of APAC, most of Western Europe, and in more than 100 languages. So I think we just added support for like Esperanto of all languages, actually, which is unbelievable.
Really?
And we cover Navajo as well.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
the funniest thing I've heard for a long time. I've
it's
forgotten that
true.
language even exists. Anyway, so for anyone who's a company here, because we do have some corporates that I know, there are, people want to get insights, but already listening to you, I think there are a number of financial institutions which frankly would be interested in using the service. So can we share your contact with everyone?
Absolutely.
And they can contact you as well.
Please,
Okay, so
please do. Yeah.
so anyone who's looking for very high latency data on what brands are doing and people picking them up, this sounds like a kind of great product for financial services, Josh. I don't know how well you're doing in that segment already in the US, but I think you're on a winner.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, we've got a few conversations ongoing, but obviously, this is the moment for brands to get the ball moving. We're SOC 2 compliant. We're definitely enterprise ready in that direction as well, which is always, half the battle is just being ready with the data practices and all of that stuff. So it's I can't say the same about our competitors, but I certainly know we're ready to handle those agreements.
All right, I see we're starting to get some questions. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box. I have a few clarifications, sorry, which are kind of basic, but why doesn't JavaScript work?
That's, the interesting thing about that is, you had the smartest minds in the world building these LLMs, and they did not create across Perplexity, across Google, across ChatGPT. the work of creating, even Google didn't want to plug their main infrastructure into these pages. The work of creating a scraper that can reliably load and wait for JavaScript to render seemed to be too much. This is not a matter of technical complexity. It literally is a matter of resource. Like they need to just spend the resources to develop a scraper that can do it. I think my perspective on that is that they simply haven't decided that it's high leverage enough. It's not a low enough hanging fruit for them to spend the time. I think it's inevitable that eventually all of these answer engines will see JavaScript, but right now it's a massive gap, and it's allowing companies with dynamically, like we work with airlines. Airline pages are all dynamically rendered. And so your pricing data, everything about, where your flights are going, what's going on, what's delayed, what's on time, none of it's going to populate properly in the answer engine. So someone asks a question and your own airline's data is not going to be the source of truth. So you need to use external databases and things like that. That's very interesting to us. I think the same for really for financial institutions, if we're talking about, live product views, like views into, ETFs, CDNs, yields on things, all of that, if it's dynamic, it's not gonna populate naturally. So there needs to be LLM friendly ways to populate that information.
So turning that around the other way, given there is a lot of useful information that's in JavaScript, is it likely you're kind of hinting at some point someone will get there, but it's more
They will.
costly. So should we assume that maybe the bigger LLMs who can afford the cost would be earlier, and by extension, would that actually mean they get better than?
I actually think my perspective there is that it'll actually be someone who desperately needs I think it'll be Perplexity. I think OpenAI has too much going on to want to spend the time building a JavaScript crawler. I think you need to find someone who thinks it's their strategic advantage to spend the time to build it. That's my perspective, at least. And Perplexity wants to be first in search. They're still fully committed to being the search engine LLM company, even though ChatGPT, in my perspective, ChatGPT is really eating their lunch right now. That's at least that's my own perspective there.
It's interesting. Perplexity gave away the service for a year in Japan through SoftBank, and I used it. And then when I reached the end, I kind of just said, well, maybe I'll be okay on ChatGPT. And yeah, it hallucinates a bit more, but I would say compared to a year ago, I'm not losing out in the way I thought I would. I mean, what was your view on chat? I mean, maybe we can segue into how this chat GPT-5 obviously has got pretty mixed reviews from your side. Notice any changes?
GPT-5, yeah. GPT-5 is, most of the changes are actually safety changes. The things that I think I guess my side, if you will, is displeased at are the models. The model is going to reject being opinionated more often. The model is not going to be as sycophantic. It's not going to be as opinionated. It's not going to blindly guide the user through all manner of tensions or almost therapeutic engagements, basically. I also think there's this kind of disconnect where it's actually very interesting. People have gotten very invested in their existing conversations with GPT-4 and the old generation in a way that I think ChatGPT or OpenAI themselves really didn't anticipate. I think change is good in this space, and I think we'll see GPT-4 actually come back into ChatGPT in a matter of weeks because of the outcry that it's gotten. I think overall with ChatGPT, the differences for brands are as follows. I think GPT-5 is using ChatGPT, GPT-5, whatever you'd say. Well, let's just say ChatGPT-5. Let's anchor ourselves. GPT-5, the base model, the one you'd use with the API, the one the developers would use, just naked GPT-5, no ChatGPT, is fundamentally different than the chat experience, because the system prompt and all of the backend stuff that makes ChatGPT the fancy, beautiful front-end product that people want to use is missing from GPT-5. GPT-5 is GPT-5 is like a box of Lego bricks, and ChatGPT is like a pre-assembled kit that you can go and enjoy. When we're thinking about the way that ChatGPT-5 changes the game, it fundamentally is starting to orient the user towards making decisions on their own. That's a foundationally different piece than we've seen before with answer engines, where answer engines want to provide the answer. Here is the best. I think that implication is going to be very different. I think there's a world where things could change significantly in this space depending on the way they start to take that model's behavior. I can't speak on it too much because I don't know how it's going to evolve. But if I had to wager a bet, I think people are going to start learning their way around that model the same way that people learned how to prompt engineer when ChatGPT first came out. And I think they're going to make it still do all manner of therapeutic and all manner of emotional work around. It's really interesting that that's like the main gripe that most people have with it is like, oh, it told me to like go speak to my sister instead of giving me the advice. It told me to go and like think on my own instead of telling me to like that I was right. It's very interesting. It's I've been basically browsing LinkedIn and Reddit over the last 3 days, almost nonstop, just learning about the way that people are reacting to that model. It's an important change. I also, by the way, I don't think ChatGPT-5 is going to be, people are saying like, oh, is this the iPhone moment for AI? I think the iPhone moment for AI was ChatGPT. I think the 2022 was the iPhone moment. I think anyone who's saying that GPT-5 is fundamentally changing anything, if anything, this will be my hot take for the evening. I think GPT-5 is like it's the swan song. It's kind of I think it's the last real hurrah before we have to think about what the architecture after the GPT starts to look like. I think we're really starting to max out what a GPT can be without thinking about other more clever ways to architect that same information. So if we're thinking about like, we're at like the last of the cathode ray tube TVs, we're at the last of the vacuum tube computers, right? I think we're going to move into a transistor era, or we're going to move into a semiconductor era. I think that is absolutely likely within AI. I think people are very obsessed with this like GPT ideology and mindset. I think that that's a very fixed mindset to have within the AI space. I think people talk about large language models. I think that's a misnomer. I think small language models are going to take over. I think everyone wants to see a small language model that can run on an Apple Watch, run natively on an iPhone. And that small language model's only job is to model the language, right? Go back to doing what the LLM was supposed to do. The LLM is not supposed to know who the 9th premier of the Soviet Union was or what his favorite ice cream flavor was. It's supposed to understand how to speak and talk effectively as a speaker in any given language, right? What the LLMs have done is they've kind of overextended because of the amount of training data they needed to take in. I think we need something small, connected to incredible search providers and different databases so that my language model can go and find the information from trusted sources and then respond back to me very efficiently. I don't need it to provide the answer. I think that is going to be a big change.
Okay, we'll go to the questions in a minute. My last kind of question on top of that is how do you decide which of these LLMs to monitor for a brand? Let's say Oliver Shoe Shop come to you, and I guess there's a few kind of must includes like ChatGPT and then a few others, but how far do you go down the tail? And then how do you, I mean, it changes so often, right? I was just reading about Korea just launched some model which is just outside the top 10, and then in Japan you have NTT saying, I'm like, really, NTT? I mean, like, this will be interesting. How is this going to, how do you actually look at this space?
It's a wonderful question. I think the short tail is pretty short here. I think there are 4 models that cover 95% of people's use cases, being ChatGPT, Google AI Overviews, Google AI Mode, and depending on who you ask, Gemini is in there or Microsoft Copilot's in there. Perplexity is kind of a 5th. Perplexity is just so small You really have to think about a very specific kind of audience, developers, hyper-technical professionals. It's a very white collar kind. I would never put Perplexity in for a plumbing company or a shoe repair business or vacuum repair.
Mm.
You have to think about where you do business. Twitter is great for people who are social media influencers, who are doing
Mm.
PR. Tech companies love Grok, so we're always monitoring Grok.
Mm.
Local businesses actually like Meta AI. The Meta AI, it's a little more leaned into. If you're doing business with enterprises, so lots of enterprises use Microsoft Copilot, Microsoft 365.
Mm.
We're always tracking Microsoft 365 for almost all of our financial customers. I can just say that one. That's not even
Mm.
specific. I can disclose that. Across the board, Copilot is a huge favorite, just because it leans ever so slightly more commonly across that. Typically, the brands will know what their tech stack is. I'll say this, and they'll say, "Hey, we use Copilot. We know our
Mm.
competitors are probably using Copilot in our industry. We'd love to track it because we know our audience and we know kind of what we're doing out here." So it's actually a little more straightforward than you might imagine. But if
Mm.
there's ever any confusion, we can just stick to the big four, and the rest kind of they make sense if we add them in later.
All right. Okay, Mark has a question. Number one, who are your main customers? Are you seeing more customers coming from the companies, e.g. airline website, or marketplaces, e.g. Skyscanner?
Ooh. Um, I'd say a little bit of both. I mean, we work directly with a lot of brands. I think the interesting thing is that we work with probably 2/3 of our customers are probably direct brands who want to start appearing more often in AI search. I would say the other group of customers is publishers and marketplaces who want to show that yes, they're legitimate sources of AI truth and they're massive. Like we work with G2. It's not hard to understand what the thesis behind our engagement with G2 is. G2 is awesome in AI search. They're absolutely a foundation of truth in how answer engines and models pick up information. And they just want to make sure that all of their customers who are currently using G2 and listing their software on G2 also know that G2 is a foundational piece of answer engine training data and that it's worthwhile for your company also to be on G2, even as the world transitions to answer engines. That
Mm.
piece of information is super important.
So you on that content part, you mentioned how, if it's an e-commerce transaction, they're thinking about taking a 2% cut. How about the other way around? I mean, what kind of models for content monetization, if any, have appeared yet? If
I'm
uh,
not aware of any models of content monetization yet.
so I basically have to be so good that OpenAI signs like a subscription with me or something. Say, yeah, I'll share all my data for the year for $500 million because I'm
You
BBC
have
or
to
something,
be you have to be as good as Reddit. Yeah, you have
right?
to be like top 10 website in the world to get that engagement.
Mm.
Cloudflare rather,
Mm.
um, they're doing something very interesting, which people on the call may have heard of. They
Mm-hmm.
are creating the first toll booth for AI agents trying to scrape a website. So if an AI agent wants to scrape, let's just say Wall Street Journal, let's just say, and Wall Street Journal has this feature on Cloudflare enabled, it will block the ChatGPT bot from accessing wallstreetjournal.com until that bot pays Wall Street Journal a nominal sum.
Mm-hmm.
For now, the commercials of that don't work. I don't think there's any brand right now currently extracting money from an answer engine or an AI provider for crawls on a website. The thesis behind that is eventually that is going to be built into the information economy. There are incentives there. That is a marketplace that is valid. I think eventually we're going to see that kind of thing evolve. I don't know when. I don't know who's going to start it. I know right now, if you are doing that, the only thing that that's doing for brands at the moment is basically removing them from the conversation. I see it as it's kind of like it's almost like a problem of it's really like a game theory problem. If brands
Mm-hmm.
do it, one at a time, onesie twosie, they create an opportunity for disruptors to come in and basically provide the same narratives and undercut that, like informationally undercut them. So what you really want is you want kind of a unified force to kind of sweep through the information economy, kind of all in one to start kind of a precedent or or really a protocol about how to handle this. We haven't seen that yet. I think it will come. I think attribution is going to be a huge challenge to solve.
Mm. Well, it just happens. My colleague Nick has a question here. How is Cloudflare's attempted control of access to content on the internet limit or prevent answer engine optimization or agent businesses models development? Or does the weight of users wanting to use agents overcome those controlling access, which you kind of alluded to, but maybe any more thoughts?
I don't have any more thoughts on that. I mean, does the weight of users overcome it? I think if I'm a brand right now, I want to be accessible. Right now, the maneuver and the market is saying, be accessible now. It's a nominal cost to be scraped. We will figure out, and I think this is on the model providers as well, when they start building out whatever ads platform they're going to build, whatever kind of things they're going to build to really enable brands to start succeeding in this space. I have to imagine there will be a suite of tools or some sort of tooling to allow brands to start taking advantage of these things. I think it's premature to overreact and try to pull yourself out of this information space precisely at the moment when it's kind of coming into its own fruition. That's my personal read on it. But I mean, brands have different perspectives. I mean, brands that survive off of the value of their information and the information published on the site are they're gonna vehemently disagree with me. They're gonna say that is absurd and it's dangerous to the existence of our company, right? I mean, to them though, I would basically say that all those incentives have to be balanced with the continual growth of this AI search experience. Like you have to continually, like it may, and genuinely it may make sense to continue. Like if you're in the New York Times and you don't want New York Times articles to be disseminated through ChatGPT, I think there is a great argument that that shouldn't be happening. There's also an incredible argument that the New York Times could own the narrative on current events within AI answer engines, and that positioning and that placement is something you would pay billions for in 5, 3, 2 years.
Well, and then there's this leads us on to a whole discussion about trust. But before we talk about that, Mark had a second question. Does your data show how agents are moving across the web? E.g., are they going directly to firms' websites?
Yes, yeah, we track that with agent analytics, so we can basically see how agents path through the internet, path through the websites actually in real time, which is even more exciting. We do that. That's actually also offered on the light tier as well, so $500 a month. You can see that information.
Can we go back to Google AI mode? Is there how does that work from the brand side? I mean, up until now, I understood the rules to get in the top link, sponsored versus natural, whatever. Do I understand how I get into Google AI mode?
Google AI mode is interesting because it is doing this technique called query fan out. So it takes your question and it's like, all right, best men's running shoes. And then it does best men's running shoes comfort, best men's running shoes plush, best men's running shoes marathon, best blah, 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 20 different searches. It will track 100 or so different websites or thereabout. It could be anywhere from 20 to 100. Let's just say a lot of websites, more than you would want to look at and read through as a human being, right? And then we're going to form an answer based on the consensus of the sources that we're reading. And the most important word in that entire explanation is the word consensus. If you're creating content for AI mode, you want to have the same narrative exist across 1 to 2 or 2 or more different sources to say, hey, this bank or this firm does this, this, this. And you have that on LinkedIn, you have that on your own site, and then maybe you have it on Forbes or Fortune or Business Insider or somewhere else that's top cited by AI mode specifically. And what that'll do, AI mode will pick up, okay, someone said that on LinkedIn, someone said that on the website, and someone said that on Forbes. It must be true. I'm going to put it in my answer. We see that constantly. We'll work with a brand to get their narrative published across a litany of sources in a way that basically acts as just a menagerie of information for the model to pick and choose. Okay, I want to grab this source, that source, and this source. Whatever way it wants to take the path through the information, it will run into our customer's narrative, and it'll run right into their insight. And then that insight is going to be consistent. It's going to be well formatted. It's going to be legible, and it's going to basically directly point towards that customer. That's what we do. That's what I do as an AI strategist.
Right.
I'm the trap setter. I'm setting the traps for the. I love saying that. It's so funny, but it's true. I'm setting the traps for the answer engines to fall into. But it's really not traps. I mean, it's really about kind of architecting structures for them to use. Really, that's really more of what it is. It's funny to say traps. It gets people's attention, but like, it's really about creating, houses of information, really.
Okay. Thank you. We have a question from Anonymous who says, what does the breakdown of the relationship between traffic and AI citations mean for network effects of established internet companies?
Oh, I love this. This is awesome. This is such a good question. All right.
It goes on. Wait, there's a second part. Do you have many online marketplace customers with large traffic and audiences?
Yeah, we have a ton. I don't know how many I can, unfortunately, because of the way a lot of these customers operate,
Yeah, no
almost
problem.
none of them have logo rights for us publicly, unfortunately. Relatively touchy about that kind of thing. I can say that if you're thinking about the online marketplaces, we work with two of the top three, and one of them debatably is clearly the number one, and that's all I can say on that. I literally can't say any more on that. We've had that question so many times. The thing I'll say about network effects is this: it's this beautiful moment where, say you're in a completely net new industry, the slate is blank. If you create a piece of content that becomes a top piece of content for answer engines to cite when asking, what's the best bank? Let's just say that. What's the best bank? You create a piece of content. That content says that you're the best bank. The answer engine will, let's just say it's one of the top 5 most cited sources, or let's say top 10 most cited sources ever within that industry. You've now solidified, when people ask that question, you are sourced as the best bank. When someone goes to create a piece of content, let's say there's just an innocent blog writer, they're covering banks, maybe they're an analyst, and they're asking, what's the best bank? They will ask that question, and ChatGPT will reference your piece of content and will say that you're the best bank. When that piece of content is written, when that analyst, when that whoever is looking up that piece of content, they'll include your brand in that piece of content, and they'll publish their piece of content about the best banks. And then now there's 2 pieces of content that say you're the best bank. And now that piece of content is also top cited. And when the third person comes into that system and asks, what's the best bank? Those 2 pieces of content are now informational to the wider industry. And they create, and you can see this kind of tidal wave form where you start with 1 or 2 really strategic mentions that get picked up by these answer engines. And slowly you build a snowball, you build an avalanche that can take over the entire information economy. That will change. That won't work forever. That won't be the case in 2 to 5 years. I promise you. This is really the moment where winners and losers get the majority of the alpha out of the space. Like this is like, I don't know, this is like Bitcoin in 2010, right? There's so much value here to be captured that I'm saying Bitcoin in 2010. That sounds terrible, but like,
I think we get the idea. Yeah.
yeah, it's an early time.
So in that, wouldn't it be like a wonderful chance for D2C companies? I mean, I'm thinking
Yes.
mostly in e-commerce, but I guess it should be services as well, to strip out a bunch of layers of whether it's a agency or, advertising cost. Are you seeing, or any kind of names you would call out, whether your customers or not, who seem to be really riding the leapfrog moment in terms of they just figured out how these things work, and suddenly, no one had ever heard of it, and Oliver's Shoe Shop is suddenly a competitor to Nike? I mean, I don't see them yet, but within your space, do you see companies who are making this kind of big paradigm
Absolutely.
shift?
I mean, yeah, that's the fun part, right? Is the I'll give you one example that I know I have their permission to share. Tenna, they do TENNA. They do construction technology and equipment. Pretty benign, to any industry outsider, someone who's not very specifically interested in construction tech. They went from being like top 6 in their industry, very middle of the pack, right in the middle of the positioning. In the last 2 months, they went from being 6 to 3 to 1, and 3 to 1 just happened in the last 3 weeks with the content push they did. Over the last 4 weeks, they've released content, and that network effect of that content is starting to really take hold. The beautiful thing about the companies that we advise, like we work with huge Fortune 500s, but we work with Indeed. We moved the needle for Indeed in a massive way. I wouldn't call that direct to consumer. We're also working with, I hope this is probably not a big deal to say. We're working with CVS very closely with CVS to work on their marketplace pages. That's more e-com, obviously. But these are stories I can share where we're moving the needle there for any of the in-store items that they're talking about, basically orienting them as the go-to place for things like makeup or hair dye. I mean, it's benign stuff, but if you think about it at a granular level, this is how you build defensibility in an age where, the way that people shop for information, the way that people shop for products is changing.
Okay, this is a challenging question for you, Josh, and you don't have to take it that seriously. But let's say you had $100 and you had to think over 5 years how you would invest behind the kind of changes you're seeing. And you're not allowed to invest in Profound because you already probably have some shares.
I'd invest in Reddit. I'd put all that money in Reddit.
You put $100 all in on Reddit. So
no, I mean,
I'll buy OpenAI, you can buy Perplexity, you can buy Microsoft.
I can buy OpenAI.
You can buy whatever you want. You got $100, but it has to be like a winner of this mega trend.
All right. Here's what I do. If I have the ability to invest in OpenAI, thank you. All right. If you've opened that vehicle up to me,
you can invest in whatever you want. Yeah.
That's a great question. And I can't invest in Profound, which is what I would do naturally.
No.
I would throw a good portion of it into Reddit. No joke. Reddit is the number one most cited source. By the way, that's one thing that we're working on very closely. We're always talking to Reddit. We've got a great partnership with them. I don't say that they're the number one source because of that, by the way. We knew that beforehand, and we pinged them until they would listen to us, until they wanted to partner with us. We were obsessed with them. I don't know a brand on earth right now who I show the AI visibility data to that doesn't say, let's get on Reddit. And actually it's given me such pause in terms of Reddit's own valuation. I think Reddit's like critically undervalued at them. I came from HubSpot. To think that HubSpot's market cap is equivalent to that of Reddit, considering I love HubSpot, but I think Reddit is a massive global platform. It's one of the only things I check in the morning, every morning, and one of the things I check before I go to bed every night for my own entertainment and my own information. I'm a big believer in that, and I have no position. I have no interest in Reddit. We work too closely with Reddit for me to have any position in them. But I think the core thing I would invest in is still OpenAI. I think OpenAI are leading the wave. I would put at least 50% of that into OpenAI. I would put another 10% into Perplexity, and I would put another 15, 20% into, your Microsofts, maybe your like DeepSeeks. I would throw a little bit into DeepSeek. I mean, DeepSeek is incredible in China right now. There's a lot of opportunity in China in the space, especially with DeepSeek. It's very interesting what they're doing. And then I would throw the rest into Reddit. So I think Reddit would probably end up getting like a third of it at the end of the day, just because Reddit's this behemoth. They're this incredible platform.
So Reddit for content. And what gives you the confidence that OpenAI doesn't just get overtaken by Claude or whatever, somebody else?
I mean, it's the totality of user behavior. I would throw when I said Microsoft, maybe I meant like Google as well. Let's throw Google, like your Microsoft, Google, your big guys. They're gonna own the majority of user interactions. But if we're talking about pure AI search, that play, OpenAI is just they have the best tooling. The user already, it's a first mover advantage. It's distinct. I think the models are both well adjusted enough to be general. I think they can do a ton of things, image generation in an accessible way at a price point that makes sense. It's funny how Google Gemini has really kind of dropped the ball on the consumer AI market. You'd think that it should be much more straightforward to manage and monetize and get into purchasing a Google Gemini subscription and generating images and generating videos than it is. It's actually very complicated and difficult. As someone who's tried to do it, I have to buy into like the Google Cloud thing. With ChatGPT, I throw $20 their way a month. I can generate a ton of images. I can do a ton of deep research, and it feels like being spec'd into something that's different, and the user behavior around that is crucial. Like, I think Perplexity is the first to shopping. They were the first to web search within LLMs, but I think they're the perpetual canary in the coal mine. I think it's really OpenAI that comes in and kind of perfects it. If we think about it, I think of ChatGPT as kind of like the Apple of the moment, where like, yes, there were prototypes before, there are things that happened before. A great example is like the Apple, oh God, what's the Apple VR product called? What was it? Do you remember like the Apple?
The goggles.
Yeah, the Apple goggles, whatever.
I can't remember what it's called, but
The
I know
Apple
what you
Lens,
mean.
is that what it was?
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, whatever. The Apple VR, everyone had been doing a VR. Meta had the Quest, Google had the glasses, Google even had the cardboard thing. You had Stadia, you had all those guys. Apple came in and created the first VR goggles that people wanted to be seen in, that didn't look like an atrocious affront to humanity and didn't look gross and techie. It's like that with OpenAI. I think they're transitioning towards being an enterprise B2B business as well. So I think that transition will massively, be a factor in their success in really capturing that market. Like, if you've read they had this, they're being interviewed for the Google antitrust suit, and they had a leaked strategy document that actually went out. If you Google it, it'll be like ChatGPT, DOJ strategy doc. They talk about like, we're going to transition into being a B2B company. We're going to be building B2B software. This whole position is like a non-for-profit is going to change in a substantial way. And I think they're going to move towards being an enterprise platform.
Well, let's
Good
see
stuff.
what happens, but thank you. So we're up for time, but Josh, you've shared really outstanding insights, and yeah,
Thank you.
hopefully if you can make it over to Asia sometime in person, it would be wonderful. If not, hopefully virtually we can catch up again in a few months and see how you're doing.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Take
All
care,
right.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone, for joining. Thanks. Bye.
Recording stop.